Sir, just fallen inside our formation.
Son, I need you to calm down.
Additional contacts.
To Rally Point Alpha.
Admiral, you can't let them maintain orbit.
I'm trying, General, but we've lost advantage within the lunar perimeter. My frigates are combat ineffective as the fighters. They don't have enough punch to take out a Covenant assault carrier.
Your pilots let up. And down here, it's the goddamn apocalypse. I'm asking you to retarget the orbit.
And let more of them slip the kill zone? That's insanity. There's nothing more I can do.
Our defense is too intense. Our grid is maxed. I don't think we'll last another run.
Admiral, tell your men to hold their positions. Reinforcements are on the spoke.
The entire fleet is engaged, Cortana. With respect, what the hell sort of reinforcement have you got?
It's passing below your position, man. Proximity 0.
What if you miss?
I won't.
Halo 2, one of the greatest and most respected games of all time. I have a lot of early memories of my cousin talking to me about Halo 2 and how he would always talk about it with like a great deal of respect. I never played it until years after the fact, but it shows that Halo 2's legacy has always been recognized. So why was Halo 2 so respected? To the surprise of many, including myself, Halo 2 apparently had a really bad development. A lot of things apparently went wrong in this game's development, and a lot of things either had to be changed or cut entirely. Bungie was coming off Halo Combat Evolved, which is very well received, so the pressure was also insane. Because of how good and revolutionary the first game was, the hype for Halo 2 was unlike anything we've seen before in gaming. It was just such an interesting time for gaming, and even though I didn't live through it, it is a treat to put yourself in the mentality of someone back in 2004. Back when gamers had the right mentality and humor to be truly sucked into something like Halo. The song Blow Me Away is a good example of what I'm talking about. Everybody remembers this song and everything that it represented back then. Halo 2's hype was very interesting and I have a great respect for it. However, with Bungie's rough development on this game, would the hype be worth it? Well, when Halo Combat Evolved came out, Halo completely revolutionized shooters forever. However, I also said that Halo 2 would also be massively revolutionary. So what was the idea that could possibly be revolutionary for the gaming market? Xbox Live. Halo 2 would be the first game to have Xbox Live with its new multiplayer. Of course, online play was already a thing, but that was only on PCs. Online console play was unheard of at the time. Microsoft was leading the way with this new Xbox Live, and of course it was a major success that would yet again change the gaming industry forever. When Halo 2 finally came out, it did launch with a good amount of bugs in the new online multiplayer mode, but nothing game-breaking. But yet again, there were new features that were absolutely badass to the gamer bros back then. That, I feel, is the best word to describe how people felt about this game back then. Dual wielding, hijacking, playable elites, and so much more that just made this game so respected back then, and still respected today. But how does the gameplay feel now? Well, this game holds up. This seems to be a standard for Halo though, so not much of a surprise. Now, something that I want to mention is that when I did the Combat Evolved review, I said that Halo Combat Evolved is the purest form of Halo multiplayer. Now, while I still think that's true, it doesn't necessarily mean that Combat Evolved is the base that every other Halo built off of. Halo Combat Evolved is actually a pretty unique experience in first-person shooters. Halo 2 is really the base that all the Halos built off of after it. It is kind of hard to explain, but basically Halo 2's mechanics would only be expanded upon in future installments. So if you were to simplify every Halo, you would end up with Halo 2. This is not a bad thing at all, it just adds to Halo 2's influence. However, there was one thing that Halo 2 had that kept it from truly being the purest form of Halo. Button combos. Now, button combos are not even that big of a deal, but they are enough to separate Halo 2 from the other games because of how well known it got in the competitive scene. Now, button combos were basically small exploits that would enhance certain actions in game. They would, of course, add depth to the skill gap, but it wasn't gradual. Button combos were not taught in the game, and no casual player would even know that they were in the game if they didn't see it. Therefore, it is more like a big gap in the skill gap where you either know the button combos or you don't. And those who do have a significant advantage over those who don't. However, when everybody is on the same level, it can be a fun and interesting experience. But yeah, overall the gameplay is really fluid and good. The powerful melee, the higher jumping, the movement, everything is just fluid, no other way to say it. The balancing is only bad when button combos are in full effect on a lobby that doesn't know about them, but other than that, it is balanced. It is just a really good version of the Halo formula. Now obviously, a big part of the multiplayer is the maps, so how are they? Well my guy, I'll tell you, these maps dude are freaking GOAT mode. This game is always mentioned when talking about games with the best map selection, and yeah, I can definitely see why. While maybe not as atmospheric or experimental as the first game, this game really hones in on the geometry and playability of the maps, and on top of that, giving each map a cool theme or aesthetic. Some of my personal favorites are Backwash, Headlong, Midship, Terminal, and District. And also, don't take my word for it yet because I haven't really thought about it and I'm like 80% certain on this, but I think Zanzibar is my favorite map like ever in any game. It is just so good with that iconic wheel in the middle of the map and its unique layout. It just works so well for so many game modes and I always have fun with it. If you watch Battle of the Brick, you'll probably agree with me. Also, there are maps like Sanctuary and Lockout, which I don't really like, but I can recognize how impactful they turned out to be. They are good maps, but yeah, overall, dude, this game has an elite map selection. So obviously, the campaign of Combat Evolved was the most beloved feature partly because of the lack of Xbox Live back then. So a major part of Halo's identity was its campaign and story. Bungie had huge plans for Halo 2's story because of this. They were going to completely fill in the void of the Halo universe. They had so many ideas and things that they were planning to do. However, like I said, dude, development got in the way. Things weren't getting done as fast as they thought they would. Deadlines weren't being met, so Bungie had to make compromises. However, they did not want to disappoint their fans with the lackluster campaign and features addition, The hype for this game did have a lot to do with the campaign, so instead of simplifying and compressing the campaign that they had, they decided to split it in half and only focus on the first half of the campaign. The other half would have to be delivered in a future installment. This way, they could make sure that they delivered something of quality. When Halo 2 finally released, it was fortunately very well received. Of course, however, a lot of people had different things to say back then, as they needed more time to truly process the campaign and story. Some people didn't like some of the directions that Bungie took the universe and story in. Some people didn't like the ending. Obviously, the campaign now is very beloved, so calling this game controversial wouldn't be fitting. I would just call this game different for the time, because eventually, everyone accepted the changes, and then they loved it. So how was the campaign? Well, first I want to get something out of the way. Campaign level design is something that is constantly overlooked in gaming. And my reviews so far have definitely not been helpful in changing that idea. The games I've reviewed, Halo 1, Reach, and ODST, all have had good campaign and level sandbox design. I probably made it seem like most games have good level and sandbox design, but this is not true at all. This art is something that takes time and effort to truly get right, and I would say that only a few games are able to do this. Call of Duty, dude, Battlefield, Destiny, and most of these shooters all have very basic and almost boring level design. Most of these aren't even bad, but they are just levels below the designs of games like Doom or Halo. So when I say that Halo 2 is not as good as the other Halo campaigns that I've reviewed before, I'm not saying that it's bad by any means, I'm just saying that it's not the best. The campaign starts on a space station level, which looks pretty cool, but as soon as you start shooting the BR and SMG, you will notice that the weapon sandbox is not as strong as the other games. It's still pretty good. Enemies have all exploitable weaknesses that come from specific weapons or damage types. Others have revealing actions or weak spots, all the good stuff. However, some of the weapons are just not as good as they could have been in the sandbox. The battle rifle replaced the Magnum, but something about the burst of the BR just makes it a little too easy to hit shots. The SMG replaced the AR, and it just feels too weak, dude. It is very hard to explain, but I think that it is a combination of a lot of small specific factors, dual wielding being one of them. The level design in this game could also be a part of that. The level design is just not as good as some of the other games. The first few levels in this game are just not that good at all. Cario Station feels very formulaic, and I get that it's a space station, but still, dude. The two levels on Earth, Metropolis and Outskirts, are kind of linear and not too creative with the enemy placement. Now, the game does get better after Mission 4, but the game's levels never really consistently reach the heights of the other campaigns that I reviewed. Of course, there are some really good levels and set pieces throughout the campaign, but it's clear that its design is just not as good as some of the other games. It all ends up feeling like a little more bland than it should be, but I still did enjoy the campaign like a lot. Now, I think that part of the reason of why some of these problems were in the game is because the development, obviously. A lot of this probably had to be a little rushed, so not as much thought went into it. The levels maybe weren't as in depth, the enemies were probably placed in the level a little less creatively, and the weapons probably didn't flow as best as they could have. Now, you might think that the only consequence of this was a non-GOAT campaign, but no. There is one thing that probably got the most effect from this: difficulty.
Alright guys, here we are, Halo 2, Mission 2, and right now I'm just gonna give my Marine. We're playing on Legendary, so I can't be let's do this! Why can't I, I'm just gonna give them a rifle, maybe. You know, they need to have good whip. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I think yeah, it's because I have the battle right. You know what, whatever, dude. We'll have her trash Marine, so, kill that guy. What? What the hell? What the hell was that? Alright, what? Okay, so one broken iron. I think he was like up there, so we'll just get him first. Right here. Here. Wait, where did he? Oh my god, bro. Alright. You know what? I think that was my fault, right? I forgot how fast you die. Alright, here, so. Get that guy. That guy's the one that's giving me. Alright, you know what? Fine. If this is how they want me to play, like, this is, I'm getting encouraged to exploit the game. I'm having to exploit the game because that's what the game is encouraging me to do. So that's what I'm here. So the good thing about this, you can't actually die. So let's just get past this stupid ass part and. Oh my god!
It is no secret that Legendary got seriously messed with here. This game is just unforgivable, but unforgivable isn't even the right word. It is just unfair. Good difficulty is supposed to reward actual knowledge of the game's mechanics and being able to efficiently execute them, not freaking memorizing where the goddamn jackal snipers spawn. Like, seriously, dude. Halo 2 on Legendary has to be like top 5 hardest games. The reasons for this is that Bungie probably didn't even have enough time to creatively adjust the settings of difficulty in this game. They just up the health, up the damage of the enemies. This is just absolutely retarded. So anyway, how is the sandbox? Well, I still think it's pretty good. Now, I know I kind of just bashed it earlier, but I still think that there are pretty creative additions from the sandbox in this game. I think that Halo 2 sandbox suffers because of the level design, but in terms of weapons, enemies, and vehicles, it is pretty good. I still do think that the battle rifle and SMG are the worst parts of the sandbox, but you know, it's not that bad. Now, I will say that this campaign really does feel like a successor to Combat Evolved. In terms of the sandbox, this game feels like it expands on the formula of Combat Evolved. The weapons now have new additions that are entirely new components to the sandbox, and others fill the same role as another weapon, but do it from a different angle. Say the carbine and battle rifle. Both these guns are precision weapons, but the carbine fires single shots and can fire much faster than the battle rifle. Carbine actually has a sense of plasma damage, so it is good against different enemies. The sword and shotgun are both close-range weapons, but the shotgun is much better as a defensive weapon for moving backwards, and the sword is much more offensive, regularly putting the user in harm's way. The weapons that are in the same area as others do differentiate themselves pretty well. The enemies in this game are also an expansion from Combat Evolved. The Covenant now has drones and brutes, which provides different encounters for the player. Drones can fly but have limited health, and brutes have a lot of health but no shields. Brutes also have a berserk mode, which is actually really intimidating and dangerous. The Flood didn't actually add any units, but they can now regenerate and come back if you don't destroy their bodies. This adds a new layer of depth to the Flood and makes them more menacing. The Sentinels now have a Juggernaut unit, which are huge and act as a mini-boss. These things are just awesome and cool to fight. Halo 2 also added bosses, which I gotta say are not the best, but still cool to see. And, you know, they are still really good to fight. The vehicles in this game were expanded upon. They even fixed the broken physics of them. Some of my favorite new additions are the Spectre, which is awesome, and the Goshawk. The Spectre, it's like a Covenant Warthog, except really cool. I wish it would have returned in future installments, although this is where the game's level design once again comes in the way. Most of the sections where you get to drive these vehicles are either really closed or just linear. I think that Halo 2 Sandbox is good, but does not do well with the bland level design. Still better than 90% of the first-person shooters out there though. Thelvadon, one of the most respected and ferocious leaders of the Covenant. He has led some of the most devastating attacks against the humans. His motivation, however, has always been the great journey and salvation that the prophets have promised him. He would always fight alongside his forces even in the most dangerous wars, until one day, he led his troops to chase a human ship that led them to the sacred Halo Ring.
There was only one chip.
One? Are you sure?
Yes. They called it the Pillar of Autumn.
Why was it not destroyed with the rest of their fleet?
It fled as we set fire to their planet. But I followed with all the ships in my command.
When you first saw Halo, were you blinded by its majesty?
Blinded?
Paralyzed? Dumbstruck?
No.
Yet the humans were able to evade your ships, land on the sacred ring, and desecrate it with their filthy footsteps.
Noble hierarchs, surely you understand that once the parasite attacked...
There will be order in this council.
You were right to focus your attention on the Flood. But this demon, this Master Chief...
By the time I learned the demon's intent, there was nothing I could do.
Noble prophet of truth, this has gone on long enough. Make an example of this bungler. The council demands it.
You are one of our most treasured instruments. Long have you led your fleet with honor and distinction. But your inability to safeguard Halo was a colossal failure.
Hey, it was heresy.
I will continue my campaign against the humans.
No, you will not. Soon the great journey shall begin. But when it does, the weight of your heresy will stay your feet, and you shall be left behind.
This cutscene is actually really well done. Throughout the scene, you see that Thelvadam, as he is witnessing his entire life and legacy being ripped from him, continues to show respect even through his visible emotions. He is very affected by what has happened to him, and yet he believes that the purpose of the prophets is still greater than him. The prophet of regret, truth, mercy are all written in unique ways. Regret's arc is much more symbolic in this game, but here he appears to be in more of an upfront and urgent manner than the other prophets. He isn't even there, it's just a hologram. Mercy is obviously older and he seems to be more of a messenger, but still having a strong sense of experience and demand for respect. Truth, however, the main prophet, is a cold, calculated character with motivations that he would rather get done manipulatively, rather than doing them up front. In this cutscene, the prophets choose to learn of Thel's actions, but also operate the situation in a way that will benefit their power. This scene was the moment I realized that Halo 2's story was no joke. Now, something that you might be thinking right now is, dude, why are we even talking about the Covenant right now? I thought humans were the good guys. Well, a big part of Halo 2's success is, yes, the amazing writing, but also the dual perspective. A fleshed out villain that has motivations that are logical, or at least logical from their point of view, really helps the story in so many ways. Of course, there are great stories that have one-dimensional villains or no villains at all, but having a good villain always helps. So instead of only focusing on the Master Chief and the UNSC again, Bungie decided to dive into the Covenant and change their image from scary aliens to actual characters. And this obviously worked to great effect. So anyway, Master Chief gets his new armor and tries it out. It now has quicker regenerating shields, and now he doesn't need health packs. Master Gunnery Sergeant, as he is called in the subtitles, helps calibrate Chief's armor before Johnson comes and meets up with Chief. Something that you will notice in Halo 2 is how much more, I don't want to say personality, but character most of these guys have in comparison to the other games. In Halo Combat Evolved, there's like two guys that calibrate Chief's armor, and we just walk past them. But here, we learn a lot about Master Gunnery Sergeant through the subtle dialogue or reactions that he has. We learn so much more about him with the interactions that he has both with Master Chief and Sergeant Johnson. Halo 2 makes every character in the game more in-depth subtly because of how good the writing is. So many characters that could have just been one-offs become memorable, just like that.
If your shields go down, find some cover, wait for the meter to read fully charged.
That, or he can hide behind me. You done with my boy here, Master Guns? I don't see any training wheels.
His armor's working fine, Johnson, so shut your chilly hole. You're free to go, son. Just remember, take things slow.
Don't worry, I'll hold his hand.
So, Johnson, when you gonna tell me how you made it back home in one piece?
Sorry, Guns. It's classified.
My ass! Well, you can forget about those adjustments to your A2 scope.
Well, he's in a particularly fine mood. Maybe Lord Hood didn't give him an invitation.
Master Chief and Johnson go to accept awards for their efforts in the Battle of the Halo Ring. Lord Hood is pretty much the highest ranking leader of the UNSC that appears in the game, so he gives out all the orders. Miranda Keyes, daughter of Captain Keyes from Halo Combat Evolved, is there to accept awards for her father. Again, subtle details that characterize the characters.
You told me there wouldn't be any cameras.
And you told me you were gonna wear something nice. Folks need heroes, Chief, to give them hope. So smile, would ya? Well, we still got something to smile about.
Quite a crowd. If they came to hear me beg, they will be disappointed. Are you sure?
Gentlemen, we're lucky to have you back. Go ahead, Cortana.
Another whisper, sir, near Io. We have probes en route.
I apologize, but we're going to have to make this quick.
You look nice.
Thank you.
Sergeant Major, the Colonial Cross is awarded for acts of singular daring and devotion. For a soldier of the United Earth Space Corps,
there can be no greater heresy. Let him be an example for all who would break our covenant.
Commander Miranda Keyes, your father's actions were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service. His bravery in the face of impossible odds reflects great credit upon himself and the UNSC. The Navy has lost one of its best.
Slip space ruptures directly off our battle cluster.
Show me.
15 Covenant capital ships holding position just outside the kill zone.
This is Fleet Admiral Harper. We are engaging the enemy.
Negative, Admiral. Form a defensive perimeter around the cluster. Commander, get to your ship. Link up with the fleet.
Yes, sir.
You have the mech gun, Cortana. As soon as they come in range, open up.
Gladly.
Something's not right. The fleet that destroyed Reach was 50 times this size.
Sir, additional contacts. Boarding craft and lots of them.
They're going to try to take our mech guns offline. Give their capital ships a straight shot at Earth. Master Chief, defend this station.
Yes, sir. I need a weapon.
Right this way.
This cutscene was also very well done and has a good theme on top. We see Thel's fall from grace in contrast to Master Chief's praise from the UNSC. Even though Thel is marked in front of so many Covenant forces that he used to have power and respect over, he accepts it and takes the pain. Tartarus, the leader of the Brutes, makes sure to emphasize the fall of Thel. Meanwhile, Master Chief and the UNSC defend the station from the Covenant. The station is sitting above Earth, so they have to let it all out and avoid a repeat of what happened on Reach. Master Chief and Cortana notice a bomb that the Covenant put on the station, and Master Chief, well, you already know what he does, dude.
How much time was left?
You don't want to know.
Cairo, this is an Emberclad. The carrier shield is down. I'm in position and ready for immediate assault.
Negative, Commander. Not against a ship that size. Not on your own.
Sir, permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
Permission granted.
I know what you're thinking, and it's crazy.
So, stay here.
Unfortunately for us both, I like crazy. Just one question. What if you miss?
I won't.
do pretty good.
Chief, get inside. Gear up. We're taking this fight to the surface.
Once the UNSC frigate named In Amber Clad and the other forces get down to Earth, they pick up a signal that reads regret, regret, regret. Now remember when Regret was just a hologram? He was leading the fleet to go to Earth. The UNSC notices the Scarab, which proves to be a massive problem. It sends a few Pelicans to crash land, and one of them had both Johnson and Master Chief on board. They recover and start fighting the Covenant forces. Cortana learns that when the Covenant came to Earth, they probably weren't expecting to see humanity on this planet, and that would explain why the fleet was so small. However, they realized that if they didn't come to Earth for humanity, there had to be something else. Master Chief then is able to destroy the Scarab, and the Covenant Corvette, having Prophet of Regret on board, decides to retreat. As they are slip spacing, frigate In Amber Clad rounds up his forces and follows the ship into slip space.
How much further must we heft this baggage? Any cell will do? Why not toss him in with this lot? They could use the meat. Them? What about us? My belly aches, and his flesh is seared just the way I like it. Quiet! You two whimper like grunts fresh off the teat. He's not meant for the jails. The hierarchs have something special in mind. Noble prophets of truth and mercy, I have brought the incompetent.
You may leave, Tartarus.
But I thought...
And take your brutes with you.
Release the prisoner.
The Council decided to have you hung by your entrails and your corpse paraded through the city. But ultimately, the terms of your execution are up to me.
I am already dead.
Indeed. Do you know where we are?
The Mausoleum of the Arbiter.
Quite so. Here rests the vanguard of the great journey. Every Arbiter from first to last. Each one created and consumed in times of extraordinary crisis.
The taming of the Hunters, the Grunt Rebellion. Were it not for the Arbiters, the Covenant would have broken long ago.
Even on my knees, I do not belong in their presence.
Halo's destruction was your error, and you rightly bear the blame. But the Council was overzealous. We know you are no heretic. This is the true face of heresy, one who would subvert our faith and incite rebellion against the High Council.
Our prophets are false. Open your eyes, my brothers. They will use the faith of our forefathers to bring ruin to us all. The great journey is a...
This heretic, and those who follow him, must be silenced.
Their slander offends all who walk the path.
What use am I? I can no longer command ships, lead troops into battle.
Not as you are, no, but become the Arbiter. And you shall be set loose against this heresy with our blessing.
What of the Council?
The tasks you must undertake as the Arbiter are perilous, suicidal. You will die, as each Arbiter has before you. The Council will have their corpse.
What would you have your Arbiter do?
This scene, like many others, is a masterclass of writing. That will be a common theme moving forward. As the brutes are dragging Thel to the prophets, Tartarus looks at the elite honor guards with a scent of disgust. He wants more of the brutes and their status in the Covenant. When he drops Thel off and the prophets tell him to go, you can see the disappointment in him as he follows the orders. Not anger towards the prophets, but at the fact of the lack of approval from the prophets. Once they leave, Truth once again uses his power for the best for himself. Killing Thel would have done him good, but using him to silence heretics of the Covenant to prevent rebellion would do him better. Thel, still with his mark of shame, does everything to try to respect the prophets and the place that he is in. He holds the mark on his chest to cover it as he walks up to the Arbiter armor. Just so many little details that might be missed, but at the same time give so much character and depth to these characters. Arbiter then joins elite Ratazvidams and his forces to go and kill the heretic.
When we joined the Covenant, we took an oath.
According to our station, all without exception.
On the blood of our fathers, on the blood of our sons, we swore to uphold the Covenant.
Even to our dying breath.
Those who would break this oath are heretics, worthy of neither pity nor mercy. Even now, they use our Lord's creations to broadcast their lives.
We shall grind them into dust.
And continue our march to glorious salvation. This armor suits you, but it cannot hide that mark.
Nothing ever will. You are the Arbiter, the will of the prophets. But these are my elites. Their lives matter to me, yours does not.
That makes two of us.
Leader, there is no doubt the storm will strike the facility. We'll be long gone before it arrives.
Warriors, prepare for combat!
The Phantoms fly to the ruins of the first Halo ring, where the heretics chose to go. Rataz, or Halfjaw as I will call him, makes it clear to the Arbiter that his life does not matter to him. Arbiter, while still in shame, does not give off the same respect that he would to the prophets. However, it is interesting that you can see how shelled up the Arbiter seems to be, not giving off too much confidence. He obviously is affected by how much he thinks he damaged his faith. They arrive to the rally point and all get off board. The Covenant forces enter the interior of the structure they landed on to find a number of heretic forces. They realize that the ideas of the main heretic are spreading, so they get moving. However, once they go far enough into the Halo ring, they find the parasite. They start to fight through the Flood and Sentinels until they get to the heretic leader fortified inside the structure. Arbiter, knowing his worth, decides to go on a suicide mission to cut the support lines of the structure to send it into freefall and force the heretic leader out. The heretic leader then uses a banshee to escape, but Arbiter stays on his tail. When Arbiter finally corners him, the heretic leader reveals that he has an oracle, or of the Forerunners, or as we know him, 343 Guilty Spark. Guilty Spark is a monitor of Halo, and he told the heretic the truth of what the installations are. The heretic leader knows about Arbiter's loyalty to the Covenant, so he shoots him while the Guilty Spark is talking to him. Arbiter ends up defeating the heretic leader, and Tartarus shows up to bring Arbiter back to High Charity, the Covenant super city, and the base of the Prophets and Covenant. The heretic leader is one of the most underrated parts of the game. He isn't just an excuse for the player to finally play as the Arbiter. He actually has a lot of character outside of the game. Yes, the character has most of his development done in terminals that are only found in the Anniversary Edition in this game, but it isn't something where it's more crucial to his character. For example, in-game, he is quick to shoot Arbiter without even giving him a chance to turn to his side. This could be seen as bad writing or to just have a boss fight, but in the terminals we learned that he was actually going to try to convert Thelvedam, but decided not to because he knew how deeply he was invested into the religion of the Covenant. So most likely, was sure that the Arbiter joining his side would have been impossible So he decided to take the first shot. You know, arbiters are obviously very religious and very loyal to the Covenant. It makes sense if you were to think about it. Without the terminal, you would probably reach the same conclusion, but still, it's just something I wanted to touch on.
Report! Both engine cores have spun to zero. We're drifting.
Archer pods are cold. I'll need to rekey the system.
Do it and find out where we are. Sorry for the quick jump, Sergeant. You in one piece?
I'm good. Yeah. Chief?
We're fine.
Ma'am, there's an object. Coming into view now.
Cortana, what exactly am I looking at?
That is another Halo.
Say what?
So this is what my father found. I thought Halo was some sort of super weapon.
It is. If activated, this ring will cause destruction on a galactic scale.
I want all the information you've got on the first Halo. Schematic, topography, whatever. I don't care if I have the clearance or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Where's our target?
The enemy ship has stopped above the ring, ma'am. We're going to pass right over it.
Perfect. Given what we know about this ring, it's even more important that we capture the Prophet of Regret. Find out why he came to Earth, why he came here. Chief, take first platoon. Hard drop. Secure our landing zone. Sergeant, load up 2 flights of Pelicans and follow them in.
Aye, aye, ma'am.
Until I can move and fight, I'm going to keep a low profile. Once you leave the ship, you're on your own.
Understood.
Over the target in 5.
Hang on to your helmet. Mind the bump. Could we possibly make any more noise? I guess so.
Now, this scene that is the scene that really fleshed out Miranda Keyes for me. Now, I know that she cried when accepting her father's award, but this scene really makes it more than just grieving for a loved one. Her reaction to finding a new Halo and relating it to her father's discovery really makes the act of discovery relevant, even 500 years in the future. But this scene really made Miranda a character that while she does what she does for the war, she also has a motivation to live up and honor her father. It is a really cool and interesting, and it separates Miranda from just being a generic leader. After drop podding onto the ring, Master Chief and some UNSC forces go through the Covenant defenses with the intent to catch up to Regret. Miranda and Johnson go after the Index to keep anyone from activating the Halo ring. Master Chief eventually gets to a hologram, so he inserts Cortana into the technology. Cortana finds out that Regret is planning on firing the Halo ring, so they both get on their way. While Chief is fighting through the Covenant, Cortana intercepts a message coming from Regret in which they learn that Regret jumped the gun when he came to Earth, and that Regret dying would both shake up the Covenant leadership, but also, in a way, help Truth. Not something that Cortana or Chief would worry about, but it plays well into what Truth's character is. Master Chief is about to get to Regret, but a massive Covenant fleet, followed by High Charity, the mobile Covenant city that the leadership of the Covenant lives in, arrives at the ring. Master Chief quickly takes out Regret and starts running. The ships are already glassing Chief's location in an effort to kill him, so Chief jumps into the water and a mysterious flood tentacle drags him deeper into the water. A thematic death to the Prophet of Regret because he probably regretted jumping the gun to Earth.
This is unprecedented. Unacceptable.
A hierarch is dead, Commander.
His murderer was within our grasp. If you had not withdrawn our phantoms...
Are you questioning my decision?
No, Holy One. I only wish to express my concern that the brutes...
Recommissioning the Guard was a radical step. But recent events have made it abundantly clear that the elites can no longer guarantee our safety.
I shall relay your decision to the Council.
Politics, how tiresome. Do you know, Arbiter, the elites have threatened to resign, to quit the High Council, because of this exchange of hats?
We have always been your protectors.
These are trying times for all of us.
Even as the humans' annihilation filled us with satisfaction, the loss of one of the sacred rings racked our hearts with grief.
Putting aside our sorrow, we renewed our faith in the prophecy that other rings would be found, and see how our faith has been rewarded.
Halo, its divine wind will rush through the stars, propelling all who are worthy along the path to salvation.
But how to start this process? For ages we searched for one who might unlock the secrets of the rings. An oracle. And with your help we found it.
With appropriate humility, we plied the oracle with questions, and it, with clarity and grace, has shown us the key.
You will journey to the surface of the ring and retrieve this sacred icon. With it, we shall fulfill our promise.
Salvation for all.
And begin the great journey.
Once the shield is down, we will head straight to the library. I do not wish to keep the hierarchs waiting.
The human that killed the Prophet of Regret. Who was it?
Who do you think?
The demon is here?
Why? Looking for a little payback?
Retrieving the icon is my only concern.
Of course.
The Prophets and Elites have always been the two main parts of the Covenant. They were the ones who started the Covenant. However, Truth's motivation throughout the game has been said to be the Great Journey, but he's been shown to make decisions that would give him more power rather than getting closer to the religion's goal. Truth knows how smart the Elites are, and he knows that they have the power to be independent. So when Regret died while under the protection of the Elites, Truth made sure to give the power to a less intelligent race, the Brutes. Brutes and Elites have been shown to have a rivalry in the Covenant because of their difference in power. So you can imagine how Tartarus felt that his Brutes would be the protectors of the Prophets after all this time of being in the Elite shadow. Arbiter gets dropped off near the ring's library to retrieve the index. He finds the interiors to be filled with flood, so he fights through them. He notices humans fighting the flood, so he takes note and gets moving. He knows that they could be there for the index too. He eventually gets reinforcements from Halfjaw, and they fight more flood as they get closer to the index. Arbiter and Halfjaw make it to the entrance of the library, and Halfjaw stays behind to keep the flood back. Arbiter notices that the humans are ahead of him, so he quietly tags along behind them.
You know, your father never asked me for help either.
The index is secure.
Mackenzie, Perez, how's our exit? You hear me, Marines? We got trouble. How you doing?
Johnson, you all right? Johnson!
Excellent work, Arbiter. The hierarchs will be pleased. The icon is my responsibility. Was your responsibility? Now it is mine. A bloody fate awaits you and the rest of your incompetent race. And I, Tartarus, chieftain of the brutes, will send you to it. And the prophets learn of this, that they will take your head when they learn. Fool. They ordered me to do it.
Throughout Thelvadam's entire life, he has been fighting and living under the idea of the Great Journey. Everything he has done has been for that purpose and under the trust of the prophets. When he failed to protect the Halo Ring, he knew how important the ring was and how significant his punishment would be. But he accepted it because trusting the prophets and the Covenant was the best thing he thought he could do. So when Tartarus told him that the prophets ordered him to kill the Arbiter, he of course was shocked, but stays put almost in a way of acceptance. Even with his life on the line, the first thing he would know to do is to trust the prophets. Not in denial or anger, just acceptance.
What is that?
I am a monument to all your sins.
Relax. I'd rather not piss this thing off.
Demon. This one is machine and nerve, and has its mind concluded. This one is but flesh and faith, and is the more deluded. Kill me or release me, parasite. But do not waste my time with talk. There is much talk, and I have listened through rock and metal and time. Now I shall talk, and you shall listen.
Greetings. I am 2401 Penitent Tangent. I am the monitor of Installation 05.
And I am the Prophet of Regret, Council of Most High, Hierarch of the Covenant.
A reclaimer? Here? At last. We have much to do. This facility must be activated if we are to control this outbreak.
Stay where you are. Nothing can be done until my sermon is complete.
Not true. This installation has a successful utilization record of 1.2 trillion simulated and 1 actual. It is ready to fire on demand.
Of all the objects our lords left behind, there are none so worthless as these oracles. They know nothing of the Great Journey!
And you know nothing about containment. You have demonstrated complete disregard for even the most basic protocols.
This one's containment. And this one's great journey are the same. Your prophets have promised you freedom from a doomed existence. But you will find no salvation on this ring. Those who built this place knew what they wrought. Do not mistake their intent, or all will perish as they did before.
This thing is right. Halo is a weapon. Your prophets are making a big mistake.
Your ignorance already destroyed one of the sacred rings, demon. It shall not harm another.
If you will not hear the truth, then I will show it to you. There is still time to stop the key from turning. But first it must be found. You will search one likely spot, and you will search another. Fate had us meet as foes, but this ring will make us brothers.
We are, all of us, gravely concerned. The release of the parasite was unexpected, unfortunate, but there is no need to panic. In truth, this is a time to rejoice. A moment that all the Covenant should savor. For the sacred icon has been found. With it, our path is clear, our entry into the divine beyond guaranteed. The great journey is nigh, and nothing, not even the flood, can stop it. Kill the demon!
Now, the Gravemind is a little complex, so I'll just explain. The Gravemind is in simple terms the brain of the Flood, but actually, it is like a connection throughout all the Flood that it has spread, and a culmination of all the minds that the Flood has infected. This is why he is able to read people like he can. The Gravemind brings up Arbiter and Chief, and this is where the two main characters of the story finally meet. Chief tries to stay calm because of his experience with and his knowledge of both Halo and the Flood. Arbiter, however, is still in denial of what the characters say about Halo. Gravemind then brings up Regret and the Monitor of Installation 05, not the one we know, but a different one. Gravemind is bringing up contrasting characters with opposite views or mentalities. Regret has obviously gone crazy and argues with the Monitor about the Halo rings, obviously very contrasting. Arbiter and Chief, however, have their difference in their understanding of Halo. Arbiter denies what Chief says until the Gravemind eventually uses the Halo ring's teleportation system to send them both to stop the ring from activating. Master Chief and Cortana get teleported to High Charity right in the middle of a broadcast of the Prophets speaking to the city. The Prophets quickly get away and Chief is forced to take another route. As Chief fights, he notices that the elites are being killed and turned against. Truth has ordered the Covenant to kill the elites. Chief fights through the enemies and rescues Marines in the process. Meanwhile, Truth gives the index to Tartarus to activate the Halo ring. However, the Flood ambushes and a small Flood grabs onto the neck of the Prophet of Mercy. Truth, however, tells Tartarus to not help him, showing no mercy. Another symbolic end to a character. Tartarus gets on a Phantom and makes his way to Halo's activation center, and Truth makes his way to the power source of the city, a Forerunner ship. This short scene is one of the best I have ever seen in a video game, ever. Arbiter having to come to terms with the fact that his beliefs that he has lived for his entire life were just a lie is just so powerful. You can see that he is only trying to come to terms with the fact that he has to let go of what he thought was his purpose. Everything that he has lived for was disproven and he is forced to carry on. The music sets the scene perfectly, and the scene is simple enough to give time to think and reflect. It is just so good. Arbiter then meets up with the few elites and they fight through a number of brute forces. Eventually, Arbiter gets stopped by a wraith and Halfjaw comes out of it. Arbiter tells Halfjaw that the brutes what the brutes have done, and Halfjaw says that the prophets were fools to trust the brutes. All of a sudden, however, they see Tartarus arrive on the activation room to activate the Halo ring. Arbiter quickly tells Halfjaw that he has to stop him. They go towards the Scarab and plan to use it. However, they find Sergeant Johnson already in control of the Scarab, and Johnson threatens them to an alliance. Without options, Arbiter agrees, so he takes a Banshee and Johnson gets moving to blast the door down with the Scarab. After fighting through brutes, Johnson blasts an opening to the control room, and Arbiter and a few elites quickly go in.
Your pal. Where's he going?
Earth, to finish what we started. And this time, none of you will be left behind.
That structure in the center of the city, it's a Forerunner ship. And Truth is heading straight for it. If he leads the Covenant fleet to Earth, they won't stand a chance. You have to stop him.
That brute has the Index. And Miranda and Johnson. He can activate the ring.
If he does, I'll detonate in Emberclad's reactor just like we did the Autumn's. The blast will destroy this city and the ring. Not a very original plan, but we know it'll work. No, I don't want to chance a remote detonation. I need to stay here.
Chief fights through a rotting High Charity against the Flood. The Covenant has been almost completely infected, and any hope of the Covenant regaining it is slim. He goes fast and catches up to Truth by using a horizontal gravity pathway to get on the Forerunner ship before it leaves.
Come, human. It is easy. Take the icon in your hands and do as you are told.
Please use caution. This reclaimer is delicate.
One more word, Oracle, and I'll rip your eye from its socket. Which is nothing compared to what I'll do to you.
Tartarus, stop.
Impossible.
Put down the icon.
Put it down and disobey the Hierarchs?
There are things about Halo even the Hierarchs do not understand.
Take care, Arbiter. What you say is heresy.
Is it? Oracle, what is Halo's purpose?
Collectively, the seven...
Not another word!
Please. Don't shake the light bulb. If you want to keep your brain inside your head, I tell those boys to chill. Go ahead. Do your thing.
The sacred rings, what are they?
Weapons of last resort, built by the Forerunners to eliminate potential flood hosts, thereby rendering the parasite harmless.
And those who made the rings? What happened to the Forerunners?
After exhausting every other strategic option, my creators activated the rings. They and all additional sentient life in 3 radii of the galactic center died as planned. Would you like to see the relevant data?
Tartarus, the prophets have betrayed us.
No, Arbiter! The great journey has begun, and the brutes, not the elite, shall be the prophet's escort.
Now, this is truly the best cutscene I have ever seen, and one of the best scenes in general that I have seen. Arbiter, when being forced to convince Tartarus about the truth of the rings, also, in a way, convinces himself. He talks with the realization in his words like it's the first time he is hearing it as truth, and it all goes on until the most powerful line where he says that the prophets had betrayed them. This is him coming to terms with his purpose, and it's just the perfect character arc. Tartarus, however, knowing how much he has done to get to the point of first-hand trust with the prophets, denies it with anger. He is not willing to accept that his entire purpose was a lie, especially after all he's gone through. He forcefully puts the index in place and says that the brutes, not the elites, will be the Prophet's escort, almost convincing himself that of what he wants to be the truth. An expertly written scene that should be praised forever. Arbiter, Sergeant Johnson, and a squad of elites prepare for what it is time to do. Tartarus jumps down to a platform and Arbiter and his elites jump down to fight him. Tartarus turns out to be a very deadly foe, with his enhanced gravity hammer and his shielding effect. He can only be hurt when his shields are down, so Johnson uses his beam rifle to take it down. Arbiter kills Tartarus, and Tartarus dies to the hands of his opposite, yet in many ways, his equal.
What's that?
A beacon.
What's it doing?
Communicating at superluminal speeds with the frequency of...
Communicating with what?
The other installations.
Show me.
Fail-safe protocol. In the event of unexpected shutdown, the entire system will move to standby status. All remaining platforms are now ready for remote activation.
Remote activation? From here?
Don't be ridiculous.
Listen, Tinkerbell, don't make me...
Then where? Where would someone go to activate the other rings?
Why the Ark? Of course.
And where, Oracle, is that?
We've got a new contact, unknown classification.
It isn't one of ours. Take it out.
This is Spartan 117.
Anyone hear me? Over.
Isolate that signal. Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
The game ends with a cliffhanger ending that would have probably been devastating to anyone who played this back in the day. However, Chief leaving Cortana behind on a flood-infested High Charity, Gravemind takes the opportunity. This game ends with a lot of questions to be answered and a story to be resolved, but damn, was this a good story. However, a lot of people didn't like the ending because there was no resolution, but I believe there was. Arbiter coming to terms with his purpose was the only resolution that I've ever needed. It is honestly a miracle that this story turned out to be as good as it is. Over time, the world has consistently proven that even with teams of professionals, having good stories in media is a very hard task. Good stories are like a 1 in 10 thing now, and it's not just today, you know, this is the way it's always been. And with the development of this game being how it is, it's just crazy, you know? Thinking about this game made me realize that this could have probably just been a Master Chief story where he has to stop the Covenant from firing yet another Halo ring, and then the Ark in Halo 3. I just want to say thank you to whoever made the genius decision to characterize and focus on the Covenant in this game, because it truly went a long way. In my experience, I've lived most of my life under the Catholic religion. I would go to church every Sunday, I attended after-school Catholic classes, and even went to a Catholic school for a few years. Growing up, however, I've always been interested in science and theories of everything. But when I would bring this up to my parents, they would always deny it if we were to not have a room for a God. I grew up convinced of the existence of a God, and with that, believing in the Catholic religion. It took so much to be finally able to break free because of all the denial and questioning I did. I was at a constant conflict when it came to my beliefs, and it was something real and significant in my life because my parents made it such a big deal, and everything made it such a big deal. And it just makes me appreciate the Covenant in this game so much. Arbiter, Tartarus, and the Prophets all represent a part of this game and the experience that is breaking away from what you thought you knew. It is just so well done and still makes me believe that after all this time, Halo 2 has the best story in video games. Now, throughout these Halo reviews, you might have noticed that with the soundtracks, I've never actually said that one of them was my favorite. And that's weird because I went through Reach and ODST so far. And those soundtracks are just so beloved, and they were to me too. But the reason is because Halo 2 absolutely has my favorite soundtrack ever in a video game, maybe even in any media. Every single track has its own mood and theme, and they all sound great. I love both the classic and remastered soundtrack equally, and they both make the game better for me. Please, just listen to this soundtrack and play the game. Like seriously, dude, you only live once. Just do it. Halo 2 is a great game. It is safe to say that it lived up to the hype, and its impact has continued to show throughout the years. Its multiplayer, being of the first to use Xbox Live on console and help build up esports and competitive gaming. The multiplayer itself was really good and had some really good elements. The campaign levels, while not the best, were still very quality in comparison to other campaigns. And the story just being a masterpiece, and in my favorite in all of video games. Halo 2 is just a masterclass that deserves to be recognized as one of the greatest games of all time. I give Halo 2 a 9 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.